Hey there, everybody. This is Hearthwalkers, the Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering podcast. You're listening to episode 14.1, and this is your Too Long Didn't Listen. Theros Beyond Death is coming out in literally a week, and we don't even know what to do over here. So we're going to do an entire episode devoted to Theros Beyond Death. Let's start the show.
We have not started the show yet, right?
Oh, it's always starting.
Hello and welcome.
It's time to bingo! Yes! Pull up a chair by the hearth.
Hearthwalkers, a Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone podcast.
All right. Oh no, it kept going again. Technical error. We're gonna keep it though. Welcome you guys to Hearthwalkers, the Hearthstone and Magic the Gathering podcast. My name is Wholfie. This is episode 14.1. 14.1. What are you talking about? Let me tell you. There's so much stuff going on, particularly this week, in both Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone. And we were trying something new with the Magic the Gathering spoilers for Theros Beyond Death, because everybody does. Whenever new cards come out, they're going to do card spoilers, and like those spoilers for the week, they go through every single card, and I freaking hate it. I don't like it. It's like, why do I need to spend half an hour every other day to watch a video of you talking about how this is a draft chaff uncommon or common? Like, just don't worry about it. It's fine. And also there's Hearthstone stuff going on, so we have put off talking about Theros Beyond Death until today, but also Hearthstone stuff's going on, and it's almost like they're competing. I don't even know what that's about. I don't know why everyone just can't be friends, you know? But Theros Beyond Death is coming out very, very, very soon, and we're going to talk about it today on episode 14.1 with me, Wholfie. But first we're going to talk about some Magic news. There is some Magic news. Let's talk about some Magic news.
News team, assemble! I understand you're in need of support.
Good news, I've arrived.
All right, I love those news stingers, and I don't want to say it, but I think the streaming thing is actually working right now. We don't have a lot of news. We have some news. First off, there was the Magic Arena State of the Game. Honestly, if you watch the video, it's very underwhelming. Pardon me. It's not the best, not gonna lie. There are a couple of things of note. First off, obviously anything that's coming out in Theros Beyond Death is going to be in the game for Magic Arena. I don't know why they had to point that out, but they did. Specifically having Nyx lands in the deck and the special borders for the Theros cards, because there's like 5 different borders, especially in the collection packs. Yeah, they're going to be in the game. Obviously, they're in for Theros, so why wouldn't they be in for Magic Arena? So we're just going to skip that. Interestingly, Epic Game Store, the thing we heard about like 6 months ago, is finally happening. We're also happy to announce that with the January 16th release, we will officially be launching on the Epic Game Store. For our established players, you'll still be able to download and play as you have been. Playing through the Epic Game Store is optional, not a requirement. We'll also share play queues with players regardless of where you play, so you're welcome to choose your preferred platform. Now, I like how they say this. They're going to have more information closer to next Thursday, which is next Thursday is the 16th? Yeah. So when the release actually happens. I'm hoping that with the Epic Game Store, I'm definitely going to try it out, because then I won't have to go to the website and re-download the entire launcher every time there's an update. So I think it's funny that they're saying, oh yeah, you can pick a platform. Like Magic Arena doesn't really have its own platform. They have a you figure it out kind of setup going on. Next, collection first and new tags. For those eagerly awaiting to open those 3 Theros Beyond Death boosters that have been sitting in the collection, they're going to announce a new first and new tag when you open booster packs. So when you get the first copy of a card in a pack, it'll have a little first next to it, which I think is irrelevant. And the actual cool part is that in your collection, any card that you just got during that play session will come up as new. Almost, it's a little bit different than in Hearthstone. In Hearthstone, that card remains marked as new in your collection until you physically mouse over it. But you can also filter through this new setting. I really want them to literally just give me a set completion tag. Let me look up a set, or next to the set in the filter section, just have a little completion percentage on there so that I know which packs to buy, or if we're having a draft of a particular set like Guilds of Ravnica or Allegiance, and I'm really I want to get better on the percentage of my completion of that set, or if I want to rare draft it so I can get some more wild cards or some more gems, I can specifically pick a set that I have a high completion percentage in so that I have a higher chance of getting duplicates. So that's new. Not exactly what I want, but it's happening. There's also favoriting in the decks now, so you can just click a favorite deck. You can also sort by most recently updated or changed, modified, I guess would be the right term. And that's another way to do stuff. I think your favorites just will end up at the top of the list no matter what, regardless of the filtering that you're using, so be aware of that. They also tweaked the way color identity works in the filtering, so now it's just a little bit more intuitive, aka the way it's supposed to work. So that's fun. Historic events with the historic ranked queue temporarily coming to an end with Theros Beyond Death. We'll be adding 2 new events for Historic Play, Historic Constructed, and Traditional Historic Constructed, as another way for you to play with your decks until Historic Ranked returns. For those of you who are familiar with standard events, the Historic version will follow the same game records, cost of entry, and price structure. Just like with Throne of Eldraine, Historic Rank will return as we get closer to the release of Ikoria, Lair of Behemoths. Also, don't forget the Historic Challenges this weekend. This constructed best of 3 event will feature a high entry fee and prizes to match, full details available in our previous day of the game. I'm sure we talked about it. The return of Brawler Days. We ran Brawl Days last update as an experiment, and we found that over half of the players who regularly play Brawl engage with the event. Lame. We considered this a strong success, lame, for our intended audience, so we're excited to bring this back for the January update. This month's event will run for the launch of the January update until February update, currently planned for February, so it's only going to last a month. Same as last, I think, right? And will be available for 10,000 gold and features Talrand's Sky Summoner as a reward for the first win. We'll also see noticeable uptick in the number of people playing Brawl in Direct Challenge and Friends Challenge. It's cool to see more community-run tools making it easier for players to find each other. We're going to spend a lot of our efforts this year increasing the social ability of playing with friends in-game. Starts with friend messaging hitting in the next few months. I don't know what's so hard about friend messaging. I feel like, to be honest, getting friends was the big hurdle in the first place, and the friend messaging should have just been part of that. So I don't know what's up with that, but 10,000 gold is still way too steep for me to want to actually try to get into Brawler Days. And I'm actually a little I'm not, what's that saying, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed in our Magic Arena player base that actually paid $10,000 so that they can play Brawl for a month without having to wait for Wednesday. This event should be maybe 5,000 gold tops, because you're only getting a card. Yeah, and there's a lot of third-party people now, and community community leaders that are trying to spearhead the ways to find other people that want to play Brawl and be able to do it in direct challenges. So obviously you have to like friend a person and then direct challenge them in Brawl, but it's not something that we should have to be doing. And then they said the Legend of Arena. It's just they're updating their roadmap. So Theros Beyond Death is coming out, Epic Game Store is coming out, the deck builder stuff is coming out, quality of life, that's what that stands for. That's all coming out on the 16th. At some point, we're going to get friend messaging, Arena on Mac, Ikoria Layer of Behemoths, Corset 2021, Historic Anthology 2, and an updated tutorial. And then in concept, this is actually kind of cool. The Play Blade rework is the play buttons that come onto the side. With all of these new events coming out, they want to be able to rework that a little bit. I think that's nice because it looks like poop. Pioneer set remasters. I think this is going to be similar to how they had the historic anthology thing, where they're going to have Pioneer sets come out, but only specific cards from those sets, so that we can start playing slowly but surely. Historic is going to turn into Pioneer. That's basically what's going on. And then 8-person draft. So finally we're going to be able to draft with people instead of bots, and they're finally talking about it because it's something people have wanted since the beginning of Magic Arena. That part's very exciting. In concept means it's not coming out for at least another 8 months. I would probably bet maybe by next year we'll be playing drafts with other people. Maybe sooner, but the rest of it is just kind of making sure people don't get mad at them. You can watch the video if you want to cringe a little bit. It's totally fine. It's like 5 minutes long. It's not the best thing in the world. Anyway, next. Comprehensive rules changes. This was a little post by Eli Schifrin on the Magic the Gathering page concerning Theros Beyond Death rules updates that are just changing. So one rule involves the gold token that gets generated by some cards. It essentially works kind of like a treasure token. That's all you really need to know. This particular post is more based for comic effect, so we're just going to kind of read it. Rule 205.3. We're going to do, you know what, we're going to do the, first we're going to shout out Fotfusen if you guys are listening to the podcast. He's amazing, but we're going to do our podcaster voice. Let me drink some coffee. And do our podcaster voice for these rules, because it's not stuff that I wrote. Rule number 205.3. Among the list of subtypes, we've got a lot of new stuff, albeit less than Throne of Eldraine had. Demigod and Tentacle joined the list of creature types, despite a lack of tentacled demigods in this set. Gold joins the list of artifact types, and Calyx joins the list of planeswalker types. Rule 601.3e. In the previous set, I added this rule to give some clarity on how a few consider only these other characteristics rules worked for legally casting spells. It says that the object takes on those characteristics while considering legality, which means that continuous effects that affect an object with those characteristics apply to it as part of the consideration. Enough people had trouble catching that extra detail that I decided it was worth including explicitly in the rule. This isn't a change in the underlying behavior, just a clarification. Rule number 702.102. Now this one's a change. Alrighty then. While working with adventurer cards, we examined them next to split cards and morph cards. What is an adventurer card? Am I missing something? And we're okay with how they all lined up. Bestow cards, however, I thought he was talking about sagas for a second because he said split cards, and I'm like, did they mess up? Bestow cards, however, were sitting off to the side, but now they want to live in the same space in terms of how you determine if it's legal to cast the card as an aura. Now they do. Okay, now adventure cards were in Eldraine, but it said adventurer cards, and I never... in my head connected calling the creatures with adventurers, because it was never really written anywhere. Now they do. This is only a function change in some very deep edge cases, as the existing rules about how to consider casting time choices that change characteristics of the spell made almost all the interactions work the way they still do. Number 702.137. There should be a new rule about a new keyword here, but it's missing. How strange. It's probably coming up later. Or it's escape. Rule number 805.42. D. Sorry, I messed that up. Also, in games with shared team turns, usually two-headed giant games, or random kitchen table jank, multiple players share an upkeep. Previously, we said that if something triggered at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that ability would trigger multiple times. After all, if the ability went on to refer to that player, it'd be pretty weird if it did that once. Excuse me. Cards like Bottled Cloister did not refer to that player. Got to be pretty weird instead. This new rule supports the multiple triggering when the triggered ability goes on to refer to that player. But in a change of functionality, these abilities no longer trigger multiple times if they don't refer to that player or similar. Now things are pretty and not weird. The introduction was like literally this, just one paragraph for that. It's just the rules people having a little bit of fun. Technically, those rules are what Magic Arena goes by, so they are important, but it's a lot of back end stuff, you know? Not super important, not super important, but that is the end of our news for right now. So we're going to move on to esports.
Venusaur with a question mark.
Get down!
Welcome back!
I'm looking something up, sorry. I forgot. There was another piece of news that I didn't grab in time. And it had something to do... Oh, here it is. Savitz declined his invitation to the Magic the Gathering Rivals League. It happened 5 days ago. It's actually kind of reason. You love Panic. Oh, I have Panic on my thing. Savitz, best known for streaming online strategy games like Hearthstone. Yep, he got big on Hearthstone. That's right, my Hearthstone boy. Declined his invitation to compete in this year's Magic the Gathering Esports Rivals League. Savitz joined last year's Magic Pro League, the MPL, in May 2019 after Yuya Watanabe was removed for cheating at Mythic Championship 2. I remember that. At the end of the 2019 season, the bottom 12 ranked MPL players were sent an invitation to compete in the Rivals League for the upcoming 2020 partial season, and Savitz was one of the players who received an invite. However, he has declined to focus on streaming. He had a Twitter post. Last year's special, I don't know what his accent is, but I know he has one, so we're going to talk in, let's do Canadian. We'll do a Canadian accent. Last year's special invite to play the MTGL, MPL, OFL, MTG, MPL was a really cool opportunity for me, and I get to play some awesome events and meet some really cool people. Thank you, at Wizards Magic. One of three. I should probably open this up on Twitter just to... Oh, you know what? It was 5 days ago. It's probably lost somewhere. Because it's only showing 2 of the tweets here. Oh, I found the rest. Okay, we did it. Nope, that's not how I do things. It says 1 of 3, but there's more. Okay. As last year's MPL player, the only MPL player of last year, I was invited to play in the Magic Rivals League this year. If I competed, I would give it my 100%, period. However, you guys know how incredibly much my stream means to me, and in order to fully focus on content creation, I have decided to decline 2 of 3. Magic Esports program is really amazing. But burnt out is not one of my goals for 2020. And the combination of streams and hard practice off stream to play on high level would have been too much. As a fan of the game, I'm excited to see how I will lift the trophy this year. Good luck, have fun. Goo Light Hearth Fun. As a fan of the game, I'm excited to see who will play. Oh, I thought that said how. Alright, whatever. I've never really been able to put my finger on what a Kinat accent is until now. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. I watch a lot of bad TV shows, so I've been able to pick up some garbage accents along the years. As last year's MPL player, that's just a thing of what we just read. Savis was ranked last upon the Magic and 2019 Pro season with a 3-18 record. Also defended as a streamer, received harassment and lacking because of the arena streams. Oh my gosh, I hate our community sometimes. So what are you saying is that Watsy invited Savitz into the MPL, but he had streamed she once in the past 17 days. Has no mention of this, and then his wife is supporting him. What the heck is wrong with you? If you don't like the way MPL is being run, take it up with Wizards. This type of harassment will get you nowhere. Streaming is Savitz's job. This OMGX deserves it more. Is both immature and has nothing to do with Savitz. That's true. To be fair, MPL players out of everybody should not be streaming their content, because if I was an MPL player, like I was my job was to do well in these tournaments so that I don't get kicked off, and I do well and place well, like get into the top 8 of everyone that I appear to, so I can get more money, so I can support myself. I don't want to stream because then people will know my decks and know my strategies and know the way I play. So like it makes sense to them for them to play so that they have a community, but you don't want to play the like top tier whatever decks you're going to bring to the next tournament on stream, because then people are going to find out. People will find out, especially if there's a certain deadline for decks. Like if there's a deadline for deck submissions, say like 3 days before the event, then it's safe afterwards, because it's not necessarily safe. Like people can submit the decks, and other players will be able to take that out and check it out and stuff. So to each their own, but it's perfectly acceptable. The same thing happened in Hearthstone's like pro scene, where I'm not saying it's the exact situation because Savitz isn't like the best, but Dog was the best Hearthstone player like in 2018, and he declined to come back for the end of the 2018 season, or for the 2018 season, because he was the champion of 2017 season. He declined to come back because he was making more money streaming than he was in the Hearthstone Masters Championship, whatever that's called. And the way that one worked is that you can't stream at certain times because the tournament's going on, and if you're in the tournament, which you will be because you're in the league, that they don't want any of those people streaming until a certain time. And of course Blizzard and Magic is going to want their stream to go on at the optimal time for streaming, which is when Dog would be making the most money. So he declined because it just didn't make financial sense. So he declined that. A lot of money on the table for the Rivals League also, but they haven't really updated anything regarding this, so we don't know who's accepted. We don't know who's going to fill that slot. We're just waiting for news. But while we wait for news, we have an entire new set to talk about. So let's talk about it.
Because I'm an adult, and when I attend a conversation, I bring my own memes from home.
Use your bolts of lightning!
What? My hair is on fire? I know.
All right, Theros Beyond Death spoilers. You've been waiting. You've been wanting. This summer, winter. It's still winter here. We're about to hit our first snowstorm, like, in a week. Or today. Or tomorrow. I'm not sure, but it's going to be a cold Valentine's Day. Let me tell you that. But we haven't been talking about the Theros Beyond Death spoilers because I said before, I don't like it when people just talk about every single card. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the mythics, all right? We're going to talk about only the mythics. And then, if I feel good, if I feel happy about it, if I feel better, we'll talk about the rares. And that's it. Maybe if we have some time, we'll talk about like meta changes that might happen. But I'm not talking about any uncommons today. I'm not talking about commons, alright? We're going to keep this nice and sweet and delicious. And there's actually still a whole lot of cards to talk about. Almost all the cards are out by now. So there's also if you guys have time, want to check more of this stuff out, you can check out Loading Ready Run's channel, twitch.tv/loadingreadyrun, or their YouTube channel, LRR Magic, and they have the pre-release, which is sponsored by Wizards of the Coast, and they get to do a pre-release beforehand. The cards that just have their collector number without the 2 are alternate arts. Yeah, I understand that. Wait a second, there's 2 Ashioks and they're the same, but different artworks? What? That's crazy. Okay, let's talk about these cards. We're burning time. Fafusin's bothering me on the Twitch chat. If you want to bother me on the Twitch chat, check out twitch.tv/Wholfie. We might do this again. Ashiok Nightmare Muse. Now, I just want to say up front, I like the alternate artwork for the gods. I hate the alternate artwork for the planeswalkers. I think it looks super dumb. It looks like a really bad... It's like when you look at old artwork from like Magic's past, but a bad one. And I just don't get it. Like, it's not aesthetically pleasing to me. That's my personal opinion, and I'm going to keep it. And if you want to at me, go ahead. I don't mind. Ashiok Nightmare Muse. 3 blue, black for a legendary planeswalker Ashiok with 5 loyalty. +1, create a 2/3 blue and black nightmare creature token with whenever this creature attacks or blocks, each opponent exiles the top 2 cards of their library. That's super good. It's super good. You get a blocker for your planeswalker, which by itself, that is like baseline really good. Especially for 5 mana planeswalker, it needs to do something that affects the board. -3, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Then that player exiles a card from their hand. So if they don't have a hand, just bounce something and then they have to exile it. It's great. It's a nice little piece of removal for -3 mana. -7, you may cast up to 3 face-up cards your opponent owns from exile without paying their mana cost. That's not nice. That's so sweet. Especially when your +1 is just 2/3 that makes your opponent exile cards off the top. This is a really nice card. This is a really powerful card. For 5 mana, like, people are playing Garruk now. He's 6 mana. But he summons 2 puppies. Like, you can't beat 2 puppies, period. But Ashiok is pretty good for 5 mana. For a 5 mana planeswalker that doesn't summon any puppies, Ashiok is pretty nice. And then there's the alternate arc, quote-unquote borderless planeswalker thing where he's a statue. I don't get it. Doesn't look that good, but whatever. Ashiok, Sculptor of Fears. This is like the planeswalker deck one. He is 4 blue and a black, so 6 mana for legendary planeswalker Ashiok with 4 loyalty, which is trash. +2, draw a card. Each player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. -5, put target creature card from your graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. -11, gain control of all creatures target opponent controls. This one, maybe in paper Magic, if you just happen to have it. I wouldn't use a mythic wildcard to craft this, but with all the proliferate going around from Ravnica, you might be able to get the ultimate off. You might be able to win with it. I mean, you should, but there's also a lot of board wipes running around, so it's just pretty bad. It's just pretty bad, and the planeswalker deck cards are almost always pretty bad. Theros, Shroud Veiled, 4 white and a black. Legendary enchantment creature God, 4/7, indestructible. As long as your devotion to white and black is less than 7, Theros is not a creature. At the beginning of your end step, put a coin counter on another target creature. Whenever a creature with a coin counter on it dies or is put into exile, return that card to the battlefield under your control. He's the like the keeper of the river Styx or something, right? He's sick. He's super cool. I love this card. Almost every color has access to Rampant now, and there's so many dual lands that like splashing for any color is super fine. So if you need green card ramp or green mana ramp, and that's the only reason you have green so you can play something like this, I'm down with it, man. This is super cool. And it has indestructible. And the dual color gods, all of their devotion cost to become creatures is 7. For the monocolored gods, it is 5, just like old Theros. Next, Calyx, Destiny's Hand. 2 green and a white for a legendary planeswalker. Calyx. 4 loyalty. +1, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest at the bottom of your library in a random order. This would be good if it maybe played the enchantment onto the battlefield, but it doesn't, so it's bad. It's not bad, but it's not that good either. The -3 exile target creature enchantment you don't control until targeted enchantment you control leaves the battlefield. That ability is sick. It's like the you know that token white enchantment that's like I bounce, like get rid of that until I leave. The baby's up. This always happens. We have to pause the podcast. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm coming back. I forgot to put the song on loop. I'm so sorry. This is why we don't stream the podcast recording. Because babies happen. But, we'll do it for today because there's a lot of video stuff going on. It'll be easier for me later. Calyx's ultimate -7 return all enchantment cards from the graveyard to the battlefield. That part's actually kind of cool, but he's weird for 4 mana. He's very dependent on other cards that you played before him, aka creature being on play both to protect him when you play him, because his +1 doesn't do anything, and a -3 that removes a thing, just the same as Vraska for 4 mana, which is interesting, but we'll see. Next, his weapon's pretty dope. It's like a staff, but also it has wind, destiny wind attached to it. I don't know. Elspeth, Sun's Nemesis, 2 white for a legendary planeswalker Elspeth. -1, up to 2 target creature cards you control each get +2/+1 until end of turn. -2, create 2 1/1 white human soldier tokens. -3, you gain 5 life, 5 loyalty. Escape. 4 white, exile 4 other cards from your graveyard. You may cast this card from your graveyard for its escape cost. So, theoretically, you could continuously play Elspeth over and over and over again as long as she's in your graveyard, which is actually pretty sick. But you will almost always play her -2 so that you get the tokens, and then buff them up with the -1 or just get more tokens. It I don't know, Elspeth just doesn't do a lot, you know what I'm saying? Definitely better than the Undaunted Hero, which is the Planeswalker deck version of Elspeth, and I'm not even going to talk about it because it's bad. I mean, the -8 is kind of cool, but it's still dumb. Erebos Blackhearted, 3 and a black for a legendary enchantment creature god, 5/6 indestructible. As long as your devotion to black is less than 5 Ereboses into creature. Whenever another creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life. If you do, draw a card. 1 in a black, sacrifice another creature. Target creature gets -2/-1 until end of turn. Interesting. The -2/-1 ability can be played at instant speed, and whenever another creature dies, you can draw a card if you want to. The alternate art for the gods is the one I'm talking about. They look like dope ass constellations, which I'm super down for. But it's still not full bordered. The border is still there. The same border that they use for the normal ones, like normal enchantment creatures, which is, I don't like that at all. It's weird. This set is weird, you guys, in a bad way. Just from a visual standpoint, I love the artwork, but the borders are just a hot mess, But I think Erebos is sick. 4 mana for a 5/6 period. And then you need 5 devotion, so I'm sure you can get that in 4 turns, right? technically you have 6 turns, or 5 turns, because he still won't be able to attack on the turn that you play him, so it's all good. Helioid, Sun Crowned, 2 and a white for a legendary enchantment creature god, 5/5 indestructible. As long as your devotion to white is less than 5, Helioid is in a creature. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on target creature or enchantment you control. 1 and a white, another target creature gains life link until end of turn. Decent. It's pretty strong, right? Except in Modern and in Pioneer, you have an infinite combo with Helioid, Sun Crowned, and like Walking Ballista. And there's another enchantment, there's another artifact creature that does a similar thing. Walking Ballista is XX, and for X you get a +1/+1 counters, and then you can remove X 1/1 counters to deal like a damage to whatever X is. So what you do is you just play Helioid, Walking Ballista with like a counter on it, and then pay the 2 to give Walking Ballista lifelink, and then deal a damage with Walking Ballista with his ability by removing a 1 counter, and the lifelink will trigger, giving him another 1 counter because Helioid, and then you just do that over and over again until everything is dead. Isn't that great? That's so cool. Obviously, it can be interrupted by just killing Walking Ballista while he has low counters, but you can also prevent that because Helioid himself is indestructible. So you don't have to play everything on the same turn, which is really good for a combo deck. Now our first saga, I'm super glad sagas are back. I love me some sagas. Kiora bests the Sea God. 5 blue for Enchantment Saga, Mythic. We're still talking about Mythics. Chapter 1, create an 8/8 blue Kraken creature token with hexproof. Super big, beefy boy. Chapter 2, tap all non-land permanents target opponent controls they don't untap during their controller's next end step. Ooh, that's gotta hurt. Chapter 3, gain control of target permanent and opponent controls, untap it. So yeah, it's sick. It's pretty good. There is still enchantment removal in the set, especially in this set. There's a lot more enchantment removal. Sagas have not been around for a while, but you can they have lore counters. That's how you progress the sagas. And the way a saga works is that whenever a lore counter is put onto it, that number chapter activates. So you can proliferate this in one turn and just do all of it. I wouldn't recommend it. I'd probably do it on the second turn, but it's a good idea. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, that's right. It is like the greatest hits of all the blue abilities. Except there's no card draw, but I mean, do you need card draw when you have an 8/8 and nothing on the opponent's side of the field? Next card, Klothys, God of Destiny. Best Genus, God of Destiny. 1 red and a green for a legendary enchantment creature god, indestructible. It's a 4/5. As long as your devotion to red and green is less than 7, Klothys is no creature. Klothys, at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, exile target card from your graveyard. If it was a land card, add a red or green. Otherwise, you gain 2 life and Klothys deals 2 damage to each opponent. It's interesting. It's not my favorite. We have so many ways to make mana in red-green. For 3, it's interesting because you can drop it on 3. But then on turn 4, I mean, it gives you a reason to burn a land if you have too many. And then you could possibly put down a land to have 4 mana, and then you have the one from Klothys to have 5. But I just don't understand why you would do it. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So most often, if you do this, because you don't get to choose if you exile a target card from a graveyard, it just happens. Oh wait, actually, you know what? For some reason, I thought this was supposed to be in your hand. Target card from a graveyard. Yeah, so you can just get rid of your opponent's stuff. And this is way better. Never mind. For 3 mana, this is super cool. Alright, Klothys, man. She's great. She's so cool. Klothys. It's so cool. Next, we have a cycle of Titans, also, of Giants, Elder Giants. This is Croaxa, Titan of Death's Hunger. Legendary creature, Elder Giant, for a black and a red. 6/6. What? A 2 mana 6/6? That's power creep. When Croax enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escaped. Whenever Croax enters the battlefield or attacks, each opponent discards a card, then each opponent who didn't discard a non-land card this way loses 3 life. Escape cost 2 black and 2 red, and you have to exile 5 other cards from your graveyard. So it's a very strong 2-drop, especially if you put it down on turn 2. So this is definitely a 4 of, because you play it and each of your opponents has to discard a card, and if they don't discard a non-land, if they discard a land, then they take 3 life, which is great because that means they're discarding cards that they have to play. If they get rid of a land, they're out of a land on turn 2, which is actually kind of sucks also. And then the escape is only 4 mana. The way a lot of these cards came out, you might be able to have 5 other cards in your graveyard by turn 4, so it's definitely doable. Nelia Keen-Eyed, 3 and a green for a legendary enchantment creature god, 5/6, indestructible as long as your devotion green is less than 5 Nelias and a creature spells you cast. Sorry. You cast costs 1 less to cast. I love it. 2 and a green, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, put it into your hand, otherwise you may put it into your graveyard. It's actually kind of nice. Not for 3 mana, I want to dig at least. I feel like for 3 mana you should be able to dig at least 3 cards deep, but it also reduces the cost of creatures, and if you are looking, if you're like just digging, it's a nice way because then you can also put into the graveyard, so it's kind of like surveilling, but it's also 3 mana. Like, it's a little expensive for just the top card. So I'm not super up on Nelia, but they can't give green everything. Green is so strong right now, especially with this next card, Nyx Bloom Ancient, 4 green for an enchantment creature elemental 5/5 with trample. If you tap a permanent 4 mana, it produces 3 times as much of that mana instead. I'm talking Soul Rings. I'm talking, whoops, I need to stop hitting the microphone. I'm talking Soul Rings. I'm talking Temple of the False God, Llanowar Elves. Anything that produces mana that is a permanent is going to produce 3 times that much mana. That's insane. Think of some of the enchantments too that are like enchant land whenever it taps, and then it'll say like this permanent, or like another, Castle Garenbrig. You tap that and it produces like 6 or 7 mana for 4. You pay 4 mana and tap it, and it gives you 6 mana. Now it gives you 18 mana. Stuff like that is crazy. Those enchantments that I was talking about, each of them would give you mana instead, so that you would get 6 mana off of just 1 land and enchantment. It's an insane card. I think for standard, I don't want to say it's too slow because there's some crazy stuff going on in standard right now, but it is definitely a powerhouse card for green that green definitely did not need, because we had Nissa running around doubling stuff up. So if it doubles and triples, it's crazy, right? I don't know how that interaction works exactly, because it would already be tripled, so how could it be doubled and tripled at the same time? So if you tap a forest while this and this are out on the field, how much mana do you get? Do you get just 3 mana, or do you get 5 mana? So that's an interesting question. I think it's really strong, and people are going to mess with it. I'm going to mess with it, but there's not a lot of X subs in the meta right now. Nissa Who Shakes. I don't have the bot set up. Ox of Agonis. Next card, 3 red for a creature Ox, 4/2. When Ox of Agonis enters the battlefield, discard your hand, then draw 3 cards. Escape for a red, and you exile 8 other cards from your graveyard, and it also escapes with a +1/+1 counter on it. Now, I'm just saying this again, you can escape as many times as you want as long as you can pay for the cost. So the whole point of Ox of Agonis is that you junk him, like you get him into the graveyard so that you can pay for his escape cost instead of his mana cost, because he's only 2 mana and then 8 random cards. So it's a strong card. It doesn't have haste or anything, but it draws you 3 cards when it ETBs, which is actually Super cool and very abusable in like Modern and I'm assuming Pioneer and Commander. Pulakranos Unchained. 2 black and a green for a legendary creature zombie Hydra with 0/0. Pulakranos enters the battlefield with 6 +1/+1 counters on it if it escapes, with 12 +1/+1 counters on it instead. If damage would be dealt to Pulakranos while it has a 1/1 counter on it, prevent that damage and remove that many 1/1 counters from it. You can pay 1 black and a green to have it fight another target creature. Super nice. And you can escape it for 4 black and a green and exiling 6 other cards from your graveyard. Ooh, clarification. Nissa plus Nyx Blue makes tapping a force give you 4 mana, I think, because Nissa's additional mana comes from her trigger, not the force itself, so Nyx Blue doesn't triple it, I think. Okay. To be fair, the way the animation works in Arena makes it seem like that, because the mana comes from the Nissa card, not the forest card. Same thing happens when you play the red-green legendary that just doubles any of the mana that you have, but you're not allowed to play any non-creature spells. The same thing happens, but from the wording on the cards, I'm not entirely sure that's how it works, because Nyx Bloom says any permanent that generates mana. Any permanent. When you tap a permanent. Okay, never mind. So yeah, maybe not. We'll see. We're definitely gonna craft maybe at least one of these when it comes out for whenever we play Brawl. Perforos Bronze-Blooded, 4 and a red for legendary enchantment creature god, 7/6, indestructible as long as your devotion of red is less than 5. Perforos isn't a creature. Other creatures you control have haste. 2 and a red, you may put a red creature card or an artifact creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, sacrificed at the beginning of your next end step. That's pretty cool. For one reason, you can pay that and just drop a bunch of bombs, like the big old dragon, or there's multiple big old dragons in Magic right now, but we're talking Theros here. So Perforos Bronze-Blooded, mono red is in a great spot right now, and if you want to make a mid-ranged version of that, this is a great card for that. It also gives all your creatures haste, which is sick. Thassa, Deep Dwelling, 3 and a blue for a legendary enchantment creature god, 6/5, indestructible as long as your devotion to blue is less than 5. This isn't a creature. At the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 other target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. I should just blink, 3 and a blue, tap another target creature. So you blink a thing. That's super strong right now. ETBs are crazy right now. And being able to blink stuff is great, and it's exactly what blue does. So don't even worry about it, man. This is going to be great. The next Elder Giant on our list, Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. 1 green and a blue for a legendary creature, Elder Giant, 6/6. Or when Uro enters the battlefield, sacrifice it unless it escaped. Whenever Uro enters the battlefield or attacks, you gain 3 life and draw a card. Then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So he's just all around great. You draw a card, you gain 3 life, you put an extra land onto the battlefield. His escape cost is 2 green and 2 blue, and you exile 5 other cards. And he's a 6/6, which is just lovely. This next card is a little bit confusing. Allure of the Unknown. Oh, that was our last mythic also. Yay, we're done with the mythics. Just looking at these mythics, I'm kind of sad that the only saga we had in mythic was the blue one, but it's a very good mythic. I would play blue just to play that card, because that card is pretty sick. I think the Planeswalkers are fine. Elspeth isn't super exciting. Calyx isn't super exciting. Ashiok is great. But I think the most exciting thing is the gods and the Titans. The Titans are sick. I think we have some more giants in the set, but not necessarily Titans, which is interesting because I want to know. I'm assuming there's more of them because we've only seen 2, so I don't know if they just haven't been released yet or what's up with that, but. That's what we're doing with what we got, right? So I like both of the Titans. They have very strong enter the battlefield abilities that will trigger when you play them because they're also super cheap, but then they get sacrificed right after they enter the battlefield. So you will get the ETB when it enters, and then again when it escapes and you play from your graveyard, and when it attacks. So it's just a really strong card. Both Kraxa, Titan of Dead Whatever, and Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. Super strong. Pelakronos, I thought he was kind of really bad until I read it again, and he gets 6 1/1 counters on it when he comes in the first time. And he's only a 4-drop, so he's a 4-mana 6/6, which is really cool. Not that Golgari needed more giant beat sticks, but I love it. Perforos, Bronze Blooded. Actually, look up the card that I was thinking of. It's not Skargan Hellkite, it's the other Red Dragon MTG standard. Does Google work the same way that Magic Arena filter does? Here we go. It does. Drakuseth Maw Flames. Whenever he attacks, it deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to up to 2 other targets. And he's a 7/7. So you just have that in your hand, have Perforos, pay 3, and then you, for 3 mana, summon a Drakuseth. And it's great because it gives you a reason to have 4 of Drakuseth, because you can't play 4 of them because he's legendary. But if they get sacrificed at the beginning of the next end step, then yeah, have 4 of them. Have them in your hand, and just play them out for 3. That's 12 damage just by themselves. Also, they get sacrificed, so they don't get exiled. They stay in your graveyard, which is very important in this set right now for the escape cost stuff. Nilia Keen-Eyed, not the best. God. Strong, not the best. But it's fine because Nilia is like green, and green has so much stuff right now. Turn 5 Fires of Invention, Perforos, activate Drakuseth. Ooh, that's messed up. Dude, Fires of Invention are messed up so much stuff in the meta right now, and I don't like it. But the decks are also not that consistent, so I'm okay with it. Because my deck is consistent AF. Athreos Shroudveiled, he's a little expensive, but like all of the dual cost, no, not all of them, I shouldn't blanket statement any of that. Athreos is pretty strong because you can just steal stuff, but he's a little costly. But there is that white, black, blue enchantments deck going around right now that is a big control deck, and Athreos would fit perfectly in that because you just put gold counters on a bunch of stuff, and then you kill everything with like Wrath of God or whatever, and then you steal it, and now it's yours. It's good going to deck right now. It's pretty cool. Elspeth, White Weenies is going to be a thing no matter what, so that's fine. Ashiok, black, blue control hasn't been that strong in a while, but it's possible. Green, white is right now an adventure deck, but we could maybe throw some enchantments in it, make it cool. Helioid does let you put counters on enchantments. I did forget about that. That's true. That is true. I was curious about that because what Fafusen is saying is that Helioid can put +1/+1 counters on target creature or enchantment, so you can start buffing up your gods before they turn into creatures if you don't have the proper amount of devotion for them yet. Which technically you can put them in any deck. Like you can have Helioid, Erebos, and Athreos all in the same deck. But that is a good. There's also Dance of the Manse, which turns enchantments into creatures in standard right now. So it's not the worst thing. Helioid is a really good card. Erebos is decent. He's just like a really decent black card. There is a lot of, especially with Theros, there was a lot of themes around monocolored, which is really important because each color got a lord that was 3 of whatever color they were, which is super good for devotion. Because if I play literally only my 3 mana lord and then my 4 mana Erebos, in black, then I already have 4 devotion to black with just those 2 cards. So I only really need to have played another creature. And Erebos becomes a 5/6 for 4 mana, which is super good. Helioid, we already have like the mono white life gain deck. Helioid fits right into it. It's super strong. Klothys, I think is definitely going to be one of the stronger ones. If like this sort of stuff starts happening with the other colors, Klothys is going to be the natural counter to that, because the devotion cost is really high, so it's going to be an enchantment for the most part. But during your pre-combat main phase, you exile a creature card so that they can't do their escape cost or whatever. You get some land or you deal some damage. Red-green is notorious for just being really aggressive, so you run that. You run the enchantment from Ravnica, the middle Ravnica set that gives all your creatures riot, and that card's super. It also doesn't let your creatures get countered, which is kind of important. And then you just wreck face. I could also see this going up in a Mardu deck with Croaxa and just doing a bunch of crazy stuff. We already talked about Kelia. We talked about Kura, Best, the Sun God, the Sea God, whatever. Nyxbloom Ancient is going to be played, period. It's just super cool. Ox of Agonis, he's just a weird card to have in the Mythic slot, but he's fine. He's like a really strong card. I just don't know why he's a Mythic. I think they just needed a Mythic, and he fit. I don't know. I'd rather this be like the down here in the rares. We have the Cerberus card. What is his name? Kunaros, Hound of Athreos. He's Cerberus. He's basically Cerberus, but I would rather this be a Mythic and just be a little bit better than have this little weird red pig thing be a Mythic. It just doesn't make enough sense to me. Palakronos the Unchained, super strong, 4 mana 6/6. I'm not gonna bat. It's a 4 mana 6/6, and if you're running a weird Hydra's deck like I was, this is a 2 mana 6/6. and when you play it, it fights. It's great. Perforos, Bronzeblood, we just talked about that. Thassa, blinking stuff is super strong. If you manage to keep a Titan on the field, like if you escaped it already, then yeah, Thassa is going to be insanely good. Like if literally Thassa and Uro, you play Thassa on turn 4 or whatever, and then you're doing what you're doing. Especially in blue, you have a lot of really good ETBs, and in green. And then you play Uro for 3, you gain 3 life, draw a card, and you put an extra land. Later on down the line, you escape it for 4, and you do it again, and then you Thassa, and you do it again. Like, it's super good. Allure of the Unknown is a rare, so we'll talk about it in a second. But yeah, I'm just from looking at the Mythics alone, I'm going to cherry pick the rares, because I don't want to spend too much more time talking about them, because we're going a little bit over, but that's okay. Just from the Mythics alone, I think the meta is going to be, if Thassa blinks a Titan, they get sacked though. Oh, that's true. Unless it escaped. I mean, you might want that. I not really. Yeah, never mind. That's a bad idea. But it's, maybe you just need that extra damage, like, maybe you just need that extra Croaxa damage to win, you know? Like, sometimes it's just a thing that can happen, alright? Don't need to question everything. Fafusin and audience at home listening to the podcast audio only version. It's alright. It's all good. But looking at this, I feel like there's going to be a lot of combo stuff going around. Heliod is a really strong combo card. Klothys, anti-combo card. Croaxa, and actually all of the escape cards makes me think that the Thrall guy is going to come back. Oh man, I don't have any of these cards stepped up, but he's the Golgari guy from the first set that's like 3 mana, and you sacrifice him unless you exile a card from your graveyard, and then he gets a +1/+1 counter. I always thought that card was incredibly strong. And now with all of this escape, if I'm sure there's self-mill in the deck, plus there's like some self-mill in 2019 or 2020 set, so I think is that part of this mechanic is going to be really strong. Also in Pioneer / Historic, this is going to be crazy because you can exile a bunch of not Sneed, who am I thinking of? The little elf guy that comes back from play. Exile elf MTG Dominaria. I'm not going to find it this way. We should not be taking up time on the podcast. Dominaria. Where is Squee the Immortal? Squee the Immortal. You may cast Squee the Immortal from your graveyard or from exile. One of the few cards that actually deals with coming back from exile. But also he gets played, so it's a little bit awkward. But yeah, it's escape is a really interesting mechanic, and milling yourself is not the worst thing in the world. But also, like, now there are current mill decks that are not top tier that might actually be able to get some footing because people are self-milling, or they're gonna self-mill and run the gold Jace that lets you win. There's also a rare that I'm going to talk about in a second that lets you win if you melt yourself, which is super funny. But yeah, that's these cards are like on a whole nother level. Like from War of the God or War of the Spark to M20, it was just kind of like, all right, this is Magic, and it's like we're understanding Magic. And then Throne of Eldraine came out, and everything just went like, oh my god, these cards are so amazing and so powerful, and green is intense and crazy strong, and all of these color combinations, and knights are sick. And now this comes out, and I'm like, like, I didn't know what power was until some of these cards came out. Some of these cards are intense, amazing. Klothys is crazy good. Erebos is crazy good. All of the Elder Titans are crazy good. Nyxbloom Ancient is like shaking up the entirety of Magic as we know it. Polukranos Unchained, super strong. All of the gods are amazing. Like, if you get any of the gods, just try making a deck with them, and it's going to be super fun. A lot of the cards we're about to talk about in the rares are incredibly strong. Speaking of that, let's shoot through some of these. We're not going to talk about all of them because some of them are just bad. I'm going to try to shoot for just legendary creatures and stuff like that. So first we're going to talk about Aphemia the Cacophony, 1 and a black, legendary enchantment creature Harpy for a 2/1 flyer. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile an enchantment card from your graveyard. If you do, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's also 2 mana for a 2/1 flyer that makes 2/2s. Also not the worst thing in the world. Actually pretty good. Excuse me. Next we have Arasta of the Endless Web. This card has multiple artworks because one of them is the promo card if you buy like a bundle or somewhat. 2 green for a 3/5 legendary enchantment creature Spider. It has reach. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. Really strong. I would consider this really strong. Also for 4 mana you get a 3/5, which is insane stats. Insanely good stats. And if your opponent tries to remove it, then you get little tiny spiders. Adorable little spiders. Archon of Sun's Grace, 2 white for a 3/4 creature Archon, which is actually like the 3rd Archon we have in standard right now, which is weird. Flying, lifelink. Pegasus creatures you control have lifelink. Constellation, which is a returning mechanic. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, which is the trigger for Constellation, create a 2/2 white Pegasus creature token with flying. And I think we have like 3 Pegasi in standard from past sets still. So not the worst thing to come out right now. Ashiok's, nope, that's a dumb card. This one, Ashiok's Erasure, 2 blue for an enchantment with flash. When it enters the battlefield, exile target spell. so you can use this as a counterspell, sort of. Your opponents can't cast spells with the same name as the exiled card. When Ashiok's Erasure leaves the battlefield, return an exiled card to its owner's hand. It's a very weird counterspell. It doesn't counter the activation or the abilities. It just gets rid of the card from going to the graveyard, but the effects will still activate. So you might, it's a little depending on what you play it on, but it also stops your opponent from playing cards like that, so it might be worth it. Atris, Oracle of Half-Truths, 2 blue and a black for a legendary creature, human advisor, 3/2 with menace. When Atris, Oracle of Half-Truths enters the battlefield, target opponent looks at the top 3 cards of your library and separates them into a face-down pile and a face-up pile. Put one pile into your hand and the other into your graveyard. This is a win-win for you no matter what, because in this set you want cards in your graveyard, and then the other half is a lovely little mini game. But it's like I know there's a card that does it. I think it's like it's not Truth or Dare, but I can't remember what it's called. It's like an old modern card. I think it came out in Innistrad. But it's good. It's super good, and it's like a little guessing game. You can also, in multiplayer, if you have an ally, Fact or Fiction, thank you. It's like Fact or Fiction, but with 3 cards. Your opponents, if they're like on your side, they can choose to put all 3 cards face up in one pile and 0 cards in the other pile, and you can just take all 3 of them or sack all 3 of them. It's a very political card, especially for multiplayer. Bronze-Hide Lion, a new cat. I love new cats. Green and a white for a 3/3 right off the bat. Super good. 2 mana 3/3 is like, that is my jam. You can pay green and a white to give Bronze-Hide Lion indestructible until end of turn. When Bronze-Hide Lion dies, return it to the battlefield. It's an aura enchantment with enchanted creature you control, and green and a white enchanted creature gains indestructible until end of turn and loses all other abilities. So you play the kitty. Kitty's like, meow, I'm going to defend myself forever. And then it's board wipe or like a non-targetable destruction effect, like a sacrifice happens and the kitty dies. And like, oh no. And then it comes back and be like, guess what? I'm going to protect this guy now. And that's that. It's super cool. Dalikos, Crafter of Wonders, 1 blue and a red for a legendary creature, Merfolk Artificer. You can tap him and add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. Equipped creatures you control have flying and haste. This is definitely not for standard right now, but it is modern Pioneer. There's a lot more equipment artifact spells. I think right now we have like 4 good ones, which is not good enough. But he is red, so you could Embercleave, sort of. But like Embercleave lowers itself anyway, and it needs red mana by the time that you would need this, so not worth it. Deathbellow Warcry. This card I think is super sick. 5 red. For sorcery, search your library for up to 4 Minotaur creatures with different names, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So all you gotta do, man, have Perforos on the field, and then on turn 5, play Ironcrag Warcry. That gives you 7 mana, and then you'll have 1 more to play Deathbellow Warcry, and then you summon 4 Minotaurs from your deck with different names, and they're all gonna have haste, and then you just win the game. It's great. Ironcrag Feet, sorry. Don't care about that. The Demon of Loathing, 5 black. Creature Demon, 7/7 with Flample. Whenever Demon of Loathing deals combat damage to a player, that player taps as a creature. Yeah, it's good. Demons are good. It also has similar artwork to this next card, Dream Trawler, which is 2 blue, white for a flying lifelink 3/5 Sphinx. Whenever you draw a card, Dream Trawler gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Whenever Dream Trawler attacks, you draw a card, and you can discard a card to give it a hexproof until end of turn and tap it. That was a lot of stuff to say, but they're just big cards. They're like big, strong, effective cards, and they can be easily countered. Dream Trawler less so, but Demon of Loathing, yeah, he's great. We have a bunch of strong demons. Demons are usually pretty strong. Dryad of Elysian Grove, 2 and a green for a enchantment creature, Nymph. 2/4. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, which is nice. Lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types. So yeah, this card's great. It's just, you want to be any color? Play green, and you'll be any color. Also really good in other, like Commander. It's a great card. Here's the baby again. I'll be right back. Start out with Elspeth Conquers Death, another enchantment saga, 3 white for this saga. Exile target permanent and opponent controls. Oh my god. Exile target permanent and opponent controls with converted mana cost 3 or great. Sure. Non-creature spells your opponent casts cost 2 more to cast until your next turn. And then 3, return target creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a 1/1 counter on it, or a loyalty counter on it. I think this card is sick, especially for white. Somehow white doesn't have a lot of recursion, even though it's like the life gain sort of deal. So it's nice. It's nice to give white some love every now and again. It also gives you, this is almost like how the blue one gives you a lot of like what blue is known for throughout the years. This one also is giving you that, but for white, where it lets you exile a converted mana cost 3 or greater, makes your opponent's non-creatures or opponent's things cost 2 more to cast, and it's going to let you revive something from the graveyard, which is kind of cool. Next we'll talk about Erebos' Intervention. X and a black for an instant. Choose one target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn. You gain X life, or exile up to twice X target cards from graveyards. So this is a nice way to combat the whole escape mechanic. Also a nice way to combat the indestructible stuff going on with the gods, since if they have just negative life, they die. So it's great. Gallia of Endless Dance, green and a red for a legendary creature satyr. 2/2 haste. Other satyrs you control get +1/+1 and half haste. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, you may discard a card at random if you do draw 2 cards. I think this card's great. You definitely are okay discarding some cards. In the higher end decks, it doesn't really matter what you discard, because you're going to get to draw 2 cards, and you need cards in your graveyard. It also has haste, and is a lord for other satyrs. Now, we don't technically, like, theoretically, there's not a bunch of good satyrs out there, so this is definitely not going to be like, oh man, that red-green satyr deck. But it's interesting, it's nice to have also. Grasping Giant I think is pretty cool. He's a Grasping Giant, 5 and a white for a 5/7 giant. Vigilance. Whenever he becomes blocked by a creature, you exile that creature until Grasping Giant leaves the battlefield. Really interesting. Gravebreaker Lamia, 4 and a black for enchantment creature Snake Lamia, 4/4. Lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a card, put it into the graveyard, then shuffle your library. Spells you cast from your graveyard cost 1 less to cast. So this is basically just a tutor when it ETBs, which is cool. And it makes your escape cost less, which is also very nice. Haktos the Unscarred. This card is sick. This is like when Feather came out, and everyone's like, oh man, this red-white Feather card is super cool. That they're giving white something, but I'm upset that they have to tack red onto it. But Haktos the Unscarred, red, white for a 6/1 human legendary creature human warrior. Attacks each combat if able. When it enters the battlefield, you randomly choose 2, 3, or 4 at random, and Haktos has protection from each converted mana cost card other than the chosen number. So if I had Murder, which is black, and one black, and Haktos the Unscarred came out and I rolled a 3, then Murder would be able to kill Haktos because it's converted mana cost 3. But I wouldn't be able to kill Haktos with Legion's End, which is 2 mana, or I wouldn't be able to kill him with Vraska's ability, because Vraska's 4 mana, right? Or like anything that would target, because protection doesn't protect him from AoE spells like Wrath of God or Urza's Ruinous Blast, which is, I know it's not in standard anymore. It's the only other one I can remember right now. But Haktos the Unscarred, pretty sick. And you throw an Embercleave on this bad boy, and oh man, he's going to do some damage. Helioid's Intervention, X white for an instant. Choose one, destroy X target artifacts and/or enchantments, and target player gains twice X life. So, especially with Theros back, there's gonna be a lot of enchantments running around. But actually spares legends. Oh yeah, you're right. You know what I'm saying. I can't remember the name of the giant that his adventure is destroy all non-giants, but that's interesting. There's actually more giants in this set now too, so I didn't even think about that. We got a new tutor, Idyllic Tutor, 2 and a white. Sorcery, search your library for an enchantment card, reveal and put it into your hand and shuffle your library. That's going to be nice in this set since there's lots of enchantments. New Hydra, Iron Scale Hydra. Like to say just real quick, Idyllic Tutor is a reprint, not a new card, but okay. Red and Black God's Intervention can be tailor-made to kill Haktos by adjusting X, which is convenient. That's true. Oh man, okay. New Hydra, Iron Scale Hydra, 3 green for a 5/5 Hydra. If your creature would deal combat damage to Iron Scale Hydra, prevent that damage and put a 1/1 counter on Iron Scale Hydra. So cool. I love that. I love cards that get around Death Touch. Kunaros, Hound of Athreos, 1 white and a black for a puppy. A legendary puppy. He's a 3/3 Vigilance, Menace, and Lifelink. Creature cards in graveyards can't enter the battlefield. Players can't cast spells from the graveyard. This is the second effect that is similar to that in standard right now, which is really strong. I think the other one's white also. I can't remember what it is, but Kunaros puppy. All puppies are legends. That's right. You heard it here first, folks. My name's Wholfie. I endorse this message. Kunaros is going to see play, period. Like, that's going to happen with all this stuff going around. We got a nice, good old rare land, Labyrinth of Scophos. You can tap it to add a colorless, or tap it and 4 to remove target attacking or blocking creature from combat. Removing cards from combat is very tricky, and I am not at all trained in being able to explain the minutiae of why that's a really good ability, but it's a really good ability. If you guys go and watch the Command Zone, I think it's like the episode where they make their own brews with the professor and that one guy from the YouTube channel that I don't like. Things like Clash or the Mana Source. The guy from the Mana Source and the professor. I've turned around on the professor. I like the professor now, but I don't like the other guy. Their episode of the Command Zone where they make their own brews, I'm pretty sure either Josh Lee Kwai or the other guy has a card that removes things from combat, and it's pretty cool. You can even remove your own creatures from combat if they're about to get got by a combat trick. You can remove them from combat, and you can do it like during the damage step if they're first strike or something. Like if your creature has first strike, you can deal the damage and then remove it from combat, which is weird. Like there's a bunch of weird stuff you can do with removing creatures from combat. So this is a very interesting card. Mantle of the Wolf. It has wolf in the name, so we have to talk about it. Mantle of the Puppy, 3 and a green for an enchantment or enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +4/+4, which is nice for a 4 mana cost card. When Mantle of the Puppy is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, create 2/2 green puppy creature tokens. So I think this is a solid card. 4 mana for 4/4 enchantment, and you get 4/4 worth of stats after it dies. I think that's pretty cool. Nadir Kraken. Whenever you draw a card, you may pay 1. If you do, put a 1 counter on Nadir Kraken and create a 1/1 tentacle creature token. This is a 1 mana, 1 blue 2/3 Kraken. I should have led with that, my bad. This next card is actually kind of cool. Nessian Boar. 3 green for creature boar. All creatures able to block Nessian Boar do so. Whenever Nessian Boar becomes blocked by a creature, that creature's controller draws a card. So this is 5 mana for a 10/6. And it draws your opponent cards, which is weird, but also forces them to block with all of their stuff. And then maybe you remove it from combat so it doesn't die. Or maybe you give it double strike because Embercleave is around. I don't know, man. This card sounds super cool. 10 man or like, oh man, I don't know. It's just, I love big green cards. They're super great. I don't care about that. Nilia's Intervention. X green. Choose 1 sorcery speed. Search your library for up to X land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, and then shuffle your library. Or Nilia's Intervention deals twice X damage to each creature with flying. This card has a spot. There's a deck for this card for sure. It might be just mono green big stuff, but that's not too bad. Next card, Nyx Lotus. Oh, it has Lotus in the name. Oh no. 4 mana legendary artifact. Nyx Lotus enters the battlefield. Tap. Choose a color. Add an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. That's insane. Now, it has drawbacks. Like it can't bring you back from a board wipe because obviously you won't have devotion. Enchantments and other permanents count as devotion too, depending. But this is a very powerful card. And this is very crazy for commander decks. Modern, I think, would freaking love this card too. That green mythic tripler. Oh man, could you imagine? Even with just the tripler out, he has 3 green in his mana cost. So you could tap this, and just for tapping this, you'll get base 9 mana if you have this and the green guy out. So Nyx Lotus is super nice chef's kiss, you know. We're gonna have to see how it plays out in terms of like what kinds of decks can use it, but there's also like I think the War of the Spark Tezzeret can play artifacts into play. There's also a lot of stuff for it's fresh in my head because I played the Dominaria draft on Magic Arena to take a break from standard recently in the last couple of days. So there's a lot of like artifact / legendary stuff entering the battlefield. There's a lot of ooh damn War Tezzeret, that's a sick idea, right? Yeah, because I think you can give people Metalcraft or cards in your hand Metalcraft, so you could play this for super cheap. I think, I'm not super sure, but yeah, Phoenix of Ash. It's another. There's another Phoenix. It's not as good as the other Phoenixes we've had, so don't worry too much about it. Perforos's Intervention. X and a red. Choose 1. Create X1/1. Create just 1 X1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Sack it at the beginning of the next end step. Lily just woke up again. Perforos Intervention deals twice X damage to target creature or planeswalker. Be right back.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Okay, that was a false alarm. As false alarm as we can get on here. Lily she's teething right now. She's again like some canines in, and I think the cats might have been messing with her. Not messing with her, but like waking her up a little bit. So now we just have a cat stuck in the room with us. So let's go through this, you guys. Next, let's talk about Shadow Spear. 1 mana legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample and lifelink permanents. And you can pay 1 impermanence your opponent control, lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. And then you can equip for 2. This card's sick. I would craft this card, period, because you're gonna run into indestructible. You're already running into hexproof with cards we have like now, so there's only more coming up. Shadow Spear is great because it just fixes a lot of broken stuff. Shatter the Sky. 2 white for a sorcery. Each player who controls a creature with power 4 or greater draws a card, and then destroy all creatures. Nice, I like it. Storm Herald, 2 and a red for a human shaman, 3/2 with haste. When it ETBs, return any number of aura cards from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to creatures you control. Exile those auras at the beginning of your next end step. If those auras would leave the battlefield, exile them instead of putting them anywhere else. So it doesn't go around the whole like, oh, it's back and it goes to the graveyard and then it gets exiled. It will just exile them so they don't touch the graveyard. Sorry, puppy cards. But yeah, super cool. This is like a really nice late game card that's kind of cheap. So if you have just a bunch of auras in the graveyard, just bring them back. Bring them all back. Storm's Wrath for also 2 red for a sorcery. When it Storm's Wrath deals 4 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. I love the AoE. I don't love it. Never mind. That's the wrong term of phrase, but it's there. It's great. Tarinka, Akron Veteran, 1 white for a legendary creature human soldier, 3/3 with vigilance. When it attacks, untap another target creature you control until end of turn. That creature gains base power and toughness 4/4 and gains indestructible. This is a throwback to Gideon Blackblade, which was a 4/4 and also had indestructible. The only thing with this is that you have to remember you have to declare your attackers first, and then you can untap another target creature you control. And it doesn't have to be an attacker, but it would likely help you if it was an attacker. Yeah, and then Gideon statues in the background. It's a great card. I love this card. It's so like flavorful. I don't get though, like on the for the visual podcast, the normal card has the flavor text on it. I like to think Kithion keeps watch over all of us. It's nice. It's super cool, right? But then the extended art, quote-unquote extended art version, doesn't have any of the flavor text for no reason. There's like no reason it shouldn't have the flavor text on there, and it kind of pisses me off. Tectonic Giant, 2 red for a 3/4 elemental giant. When it attacks or becomes the target of a spell an opponent controls, you choose 1, deals 3 damage to each opponent, or exile the top 2 cards of your library. Choose one of them until end of turn next turn. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. So decent, also good. All exterior dark card flavor text. Oh, that's dumb. I love that the art goes to the border. I don't love that it's just a stretched out version, and I don't love that they got rid of the text. It's dumb. Like, why? There's no point. We got the rest of the temples out, so we got Temple of Abandon, Deceit, Enlightenment, Malice, and Plenty to fill out the rest of the color wheel. Got Terror of Mount Velis. This card is super cool. 5 red for a dragon, 5/5 flying double strike. When it enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain double strike until the end of turn. We have multiple ways of getting this guy onto the battlefield for cheap, including the new Theros that's coming out. So yeah, this card's going to be sick because giving things double strike is amazing and doing it by surprise is double amazing. Thassa's Intervention, X blue, choose 1, look at the top X cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, or counter target spell unless its controller pays twice X, which is crazy cool. That card, double strike, sounds super badass. Double strike, cross counter, double strike. Thassa's Oracle. This is the card I was talking about earlier. It's another ETB, and it's a really good card. Blue for a 1/3 Merfolk Wizard. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. So right off, you're doing at least 2. Put up to 1 of them on the top of your library and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game. Easy. You just put 4 of these, 4 of the other Merfolk from Eldraine that mills target player for 4 cards. Mill yourself. You put in Jace. You put in all of those mill stuff. You throw this out on the field, and you could just win the game. It's great. And you don't have to fully mill yourself either. Another saga, the Akron War, 3 in a red for an enchantment saga. Chapter 1, gain control of target creature for as long as the Akron of War remains on the battlefield. 2, until your next turn, creatures your opponent control attack each combat if able. Chapter 3, each tapped creature deals damage to itself equal to its power. This card's super weird. It's not going to see a lot of play because it's super weird, but it's interesting. The first Iron Games, another saga, 2 and a green. Also, I'd like to say before we move on that all of the sagas have like different artwork and it's super cool. Some of the sagas are like Roman vase artwork. Some of them are like the tile artwork that the set kind of like the Planeswalkers revolve around of. Some of it is just normal artwork. I like it. I liked the sagas the first time they came around because they were all like similar scroll type deals, but this is another cool way of doing it. The Iron Games create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Chapter 2, put 3 1/1 counters on target creature you control. Chapter 3, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw 2 cards. Chapter 4, first time we had a Chapter 4, create a gold token. That's not the best, but it's fitting, right? Thrix the Sudden Storm, 3 blue for a legendary creature, elemental giant, flash, flying. Spells you cast with converted mana cost 5 or greater, cost 1 less to cast, and can't be countered. Super interesting. Tree Shaker Chimera. I love this card. It's technically a puppy. 5 green for a creature Chimera puppy. 8/5. All creatures able to block Tree Shaker Chimera do so. When Tree Shaker Chimera dies, draw 3 cards. It's great. It's just a big old puppy. Timurit Call of the Dead, another saga, 2 and a black. Chapters 1 and 2, put the top 3 cards of your library into the graveyard. You may exile a creature or enchantment card from your graveyard. If you do, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Chapter 3, you gain X life and scry X, where X is the number of zombies you control. Now, we don't have a lot. Actually, we do have a lot of zombies because War of the Spark is still a thing, but there was more in M19, which we don't have access to, but you do in Historic. So this card is great because it still works in both Historic and Standard. Underworld Breach. This card is interesting. It's a 1 and a red for an enchantment. Each non-land card in your graveyard has escape. The escape cost is equal to the card's mana cost plus exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. At the beginning of your end step, sacrifice Underworld Breach. It's super weird, right? Because you can basically get any card in your graveyard back. And that makes anything that mills you or sends cards specifically from your deck to the graveyard super powerful. I think this card is going to see even like past standard play. I think it's going to see some standard play, but I could see modern making this busted. Definitely in Commander 2, this is going to be really cool. Underworld Sentinel, 3 black. Creature Skeleton Soldier. Whenever Underworld Sentinel... Oh, it's a 4/5 for 5. Whenever Underworld Sentinel attacks, exile target creature card from your graveyard. When it dies, put all cards exiled with it onto the battlefield. Super cool ability. I don't think it's going to be seeing a lot of play, but it's super cool. Victory's Envoy, 3 white for a human cleric. 3/3 at the beginning of your upkeep. Put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control. Very dangerous if it gets out of hand. Don't care about that. And that's all of our rares. Oh man, look at that. Oh, we have some uncommon legendaries. I forgot about that. We have to talk about those real quick. Alirios Enraptured. 2 and a blue for an uncommon legendary creature human. Alirios Enraptured enters the battlefield tapped. Doesn't untap during your untap step if you control a reflection. When Alirios enters the battlefield, create a 3/2 blue reflection creature token, and he's a 2/3. So he just summons a 3/2. That's literally, I get it, because he's a 2/3, ha ha ha. And he doesn't untap until the reflection is gone. It's interesting. I don't think it really means anything, but okay. And then we have Annex Hardened of the Forge. All of the gods have demigods now. So each of the monocolored gods, I think, or just each of the gods have demigods. And they're all pretty cool. Annex Hardened in the Forge is a 1 red legendary enchantment creature demigod. Star 3. Annex's power is equal to your devotion to red. They all have that thing. Like their devotion to your color changes one of their stats. Whenever Annex or another non-token creature you control dies, create a 1/1 red satyr creature token with this creature can't block. The creature had power 4 or greater and set 2 of those tokens instead. That's really good. Calafi, Beloved of the Sea, 1 blue for legendary creature, enchantment creature demigod. Also, the alternate artwork for these is similar to the God's alternate artwork, which is amazing. Previously in the card Annex and Symed. Oh, that's cool. I've heard. I think I have the card Annex and Symed. I just didn't put that together. I know like creatures from the first Theros set that were like important are like, some of them are demigods now, which is super cool to see. Calafe, Beloved of the Sea, 1 blue for a legendary enchantment creature demigod, star 3. Calafe's power is equal to your devotion to blue. Creatures and enchantments you control have spells your opponents cast that target this permanent costs 1 more to cast. That's awesome. That's funny. Don't care about that. Daxos, Blessed by the Sun. White, legendary enchantment creature demigod. Daxos' toughness is equal to your devotion to white. Whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield or dies, you gain 1 life. Decent card, especially in the mono white life gain deck thing. There's some nightmares running around. That's cool. Some kill spells. There's some minotaurs. I don't know if there's going to be enough to make a really cool minotaur deck, but we'll see. Elspeth's Nightmare, 2 and a black for another Black Saga. Chapter 1, destroy target creature and opponent controls a power 2 or less. Chapter 2, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from that, and that player discards it. In Chapter 3, exile target opponent's graveyard. That last part is going to be really strong, but I don't know if people are going to play that card necessarily, unless there's a target for the first ability. The second one is, it's meh. It's okay, but that last part is pretty important, which makes me think you wouldn't play this on curve, so who knows if you're actually going to play it or not. Eutropia, the twice favored, 1 green and blue legendary creature human wizard for a 2/2 with Constellation, so whenever an enchantment ETBs, this effect activates. You put a 1/1 counter on target creature, that creature gains flying until end of turn. Pretty strong ability, I'm not gonna lie. This would be even good in a brawl deck, because when you just put a bunch of enchantments in your deck, and then when an enchantment enters the battlefield, you just make a thing flying and hit your opponent in the face. We got Field of Ruin back. Tap to add a non-color, or you can pay 2 and tap it. Sacrifice Field of Ruin, destroy target non-basic land opponent controls. Each player searches their library for a basic land card, puts in the battlefield, then shuffles their library. I think this was out in Dominaria? I'm not sure. Right? Also, Eutropia gets favored by 2 gods, so she's the only one. I think it's interesting way to do the dual colored thing, especially in this. We got Gary back, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, 3 black for a 2/4 zombie. When Grey Merchant of Asphodel enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. It's interesting because it's not necessarily a lifesteal thing, because if you have multiple opponents, then you gain multiple life things. That's the only way I can say it. You're going to gain a lot of life. Grey Merchant of Asphodel is a really cool card in original Theros, and he's back exactly the same way, and it's great. I love it. Hydra's Growth. I think this card's cool. 2 and a green for enchantment aura. Enchant creature. When Hydra's Growth enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on enchanted creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, double the number of 1/1 encounters on enchanted creature. I love 1/1 counters. Dude, why is Gary's Max so much brighter in the alternate art? That's true. I don't know. It's more washed out. I think the alt art is just more washed out than this one. There's like a bunch of weird stuff going on with it. Wizards is just not doing these alternate arts the right way, man. They're doing these artists dirty. But yeah, Hydra's Growth doubles the amount of counters on enchanted creature during your upkeep, which makes that Simic alternate art, the alternate win card that you need 20 counters on it, that much easier to achieve. So Hydra's Growth is going to be great. Impending Doom, 2 in a red for an enchantment aura. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3 and attacks each combat. If able, when an enchanted creature dies, Impending Doom deals 3 damage to that creature's controller. It's a decent card. I'm not gonna lie, it's a decent card. Don't care about that. Midomia's Prophecy, 1 in a blue for a saga. Chapter 1, scry 2. Chapter 2, choose a card name. That could be all done in the same chapter. Chapter 3, when you cast a spell with the chosen name for the first time this turn, draw 2 cards. In Chapter 4, look at the top card of each player's library. This card's dumb. It's like not even worth a slot in the deck. It barely does anything. It's basically 2 mana for an enchantment that will let you scry 2, and then maybe in 2 turns you can draw 2 cards, and then you get to look at the top card of a library, which is like not even worth it. Mirror Shield has a Gorgon on it, so that's kind of cool. Mischievous Chimera, blue and a red, enchantment creature Chimera, flying whenever you cast your first spell during each of your opponent's turn. Mischievous Chimera deals 1 damage to each opponent and you scry 1. So kind of reinforcing that flashy do stuff on your opponent's turn deck, which is kind of nice. Renetta, Call to the Hunt, 2 green, legendary enchantment creature demigod. Renetta's power is equal to your devotion to green. She's at star 3. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. Super cool, super nice. We got Gideon back in Rise to Glory, 3 white and a black for a sorcery. Choose one or both. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Return target aura card from the graveyard to your battlefield. A hero dies, a legend arises. I hope Gideon's gone for good. Like I like him now, but only because he's dead, if that makes any sense. Siona, captain of the Pylias. 1 green and a white legendary creature, human soldier. When Siona, captain of the Pylias, enters the battlefield, look at the top 7 cards from your library. You may reveal an aura card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. Whenever an aura you control becomes attached to a creature you control, create a 1/1 white human creature token, and it's a 2/2. Not bad. That's Daxos, I think. Oh, is it Daxos? Instead of Gideon? I thought it was Gideon. Honestly, I couldn't give a shit. I mean, a poop. Sorry. Some more Minotaurs. That's nice to see. Staggering Insight. That's a cool. Okay, here we go. Some more sagas. The Binding of the Titans, The Birth of Meletis, and The Triumph of Anax. Some nice cards here. The Binding of the Titans, 1 in a green. Each player puts the top 3 cards of the library into the graveyard. Chapter 2, exile up to 2 target cards from graveyards. For each creature card exiled this way, you gain 1 life. Chapter 3, return target creature or land you card from your graveyard to your hand. Messy. It's messy. It helps with the escape thing though, which is funny because the whole thing is keeping them in the underworld. So, but it helps you because it's exile. It's sending cards from your deck to your graveyard. The Birth of Meletis, 1 in a white. For chapter 1, search your library for a basic plains card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Chapter 2, create an 0/4 colorless wall artifact creature token with defender. Chapter 3, you gain 2 life. It's meh, it's whatever. Triumph of Anax, we're just skipping it. 2 in a red. Chapters 1, 2, and 3 until end of turn, target creature gains trample and gains XO, where X is the number of lore counters on Triumph of Anax. Chapter 4, target creature you control fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. I think this card's great. It gives your creatures trample, which is always really hard to come by. So the plus X part doesn't matter as much as the trample part does, especially in red. Birth of Meletis. Yeah, that's exactly it. Timurit, chosen from death, black. Legendary enchantment creature, demigod. Timurit's toughness is equal to your devotion to black. He's a 2-star. 1 in a black, exile up to 2 target cards from graveyards. You gain 1 life for each creature card exiled this way. He's fine. It's interesting to note though that Timurit and what's his name? The white guy. There's a lot of white guys in this set. Sorry. Daxos are the only ones that are 2 of their mana cost, and that their devotion equals their toughness rather than their power, which is interesting. Just saying. Wolf Willowhaven, Puppy Willowhaven, 1 and a green, enchantment aura, enchant land. When enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green. So this is what's generating the value for that card, but you don't tap it, so I'm curious about that. Then you can pay 4 and a green to sacrifice Puppy Willowhaven to create 2/2 green puppies and you can only activate the ability during your turn, so that's cool. Altar of the Pantheon is an interesting card. It's a common. We're done basically, but Altar of the Pantheon is 3 mana for an artifact. Your devotion to each color and each combination of colors is increased by 1. And you can tap it to add a mana of any color. If you control a god, a demigod, or a legendary enchantment, you gain 1 life. So this is just a strictly better version of a lot of the generic 3 mana tap for a mana artifacts, which is super good to see. There's a couple of enchantments. We're really lacking enchantments in our standard meta right now. And then the Nyx lands are very pretty. We're not going to go over commons. We only went over like interesting uncommons. Let's sum it up. Let's end this, I would like to say that for standard, this set is definitely going to change the landscape a whole lot. Basically, Throne of Eldraine was a nice way of Wizards to say, hey, let's take a break from all the Nico Bolas bullshiz and visit a new plane. But we're going to focus on monocolored stuff because Theros is coming back right afterwards, and we need to prep for that because we just did a whole 1.5 years of multicolored stuff. It'll change the landscape. Oh, that's not funny. Wasn't my joke, so it's not funny. This is actually kind of interesting having someone in chat to bounce stuff off of. Usually it's just me on the podcast. Obviously, you guys can't hear Fat Fusin laughing at all my amazing jokes 24, however long this podcast is, but it's nice to have that back and forth, at least a little bit. We're going to have to work on getting some people on the podcast, but you saw how we recorded this. It's hard. The meta is definitely going to change. I think the decks that are strong now are going to have minimal support, but they're not going to go away because the decks that are coming with this new set are going to be strong, but they are going to need support from the previous cards no matter what. There's not going to be like how when Throne of Eldraine came out, Knights is just a deck now, and it does not use a lot of cards from the previous set. It uses some, but not a lot. So there was just a Knights package that came in the last set that was decent enough to run. In Theros, there's some escape stuff going on. There's some white weenie stuff. There's some nightmare control-y stuff. But it all still needs kind of support from the other sets, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it kind of just means that it's not going to be I don't think there's going to be an Oko situation again where there's just one card that's just overpowered. That hasn't hit me yet. There's a lot of cards that are really strong, but when there's a lot of really strong cards, guess what? That means there's a lot of decks because you can't put all the strong cards in one deck. I mean, you could do 5-color fires, but it's not consistent, and B, it's slow, so it'll lose to aggro decks. And there's definitely going to be aggro decks in this set. Plus, the set has cards like Clothis, God of Destiny, that counteract the main mechanics well enough so that even if things are broken, there's ways to fix it in the set itself, which is actually kind of cool. For limited, here's what I'm telling you guys. If you guys are going to do the pre-release, right? You get six packs or 5 packs, and the pre-release promo. Basically, the way this is going to work is that you have to find a bomb, rare mythic. There's a lot of. Almost every single mythic in this set you can build a deck around, except for... Nope, I would say all of them. If you pull any mythic, you build your deck around it, period. because all of them are pretty good. For the rares, you kind of just have to hope you hit a bomb rare. Like Arasta Endless Web would be good. Archon Sun's Grace is pretty good. Basically any of the creatures you can probably build a deck around it. And it'll be a really strong card. The multicolored specifically are going to be very strong, but you kind of just have to, you're going to have 6 chances to get a rare that you can build a deck around of, and you build the deck around the rare. A lot of times when you're playing limited, specifically in sealed, it's less about the individual cards and more about having cohesion in your deck, making sure the deck works well, like is well balanced. Like, I would rather not shoot for the stars and hit this like really sick card. I would rather shoot for the fences and get to like second base, if we're using sports terms, for those of you familiar with sports ball. It's not the technical term, but if you listen to limited resources, they would call it a prince deck or a king's deck, something like that, where there's just a lot of bombs. There's just a lot of really powerful cards, and that is kind of similar to this. If we just go to the rares, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ish, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 7, I would say 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 ish. We'll just both of those 22 for the other ish that I just said. That's 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29 ish, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. Yeah, so out of all the rares, I would say, just by going through them real quick, I would say at least 34 of them are deck buildable around. So out of 6, pretty sure it's 5 packs and your promo, so you have 6 chances of getting a mythic or a rare. Out of all of those, you're bound to hit at least something you can build a deck around. And instead of going through all your packs and like, okay, well, I have a really good like red rare card, but I have more blue-green cards that I can build my deck around. No, you go with the bomb, period, because everyone else is going to go with their bomb, and some people get really lucky and the cards that they pull from their deck also support the bomb card, or they have multiple bombs in the same color and they're going to win the game. So follow the bombs. That's how we're going to win in limited for this set. For draft, it's going to be crazy, man. I don't even know what we're going to do in draft here. We're just going to have to wait until we can start drafting in Magic Arena later on. I do have enough gems to buy the Mastery Pass, like as soon as it comes out. And then I have like 10,000 gold right now because I haven't been playing any limited in Magic Arena because we've been trying to do the Legend Daddy thing. So as soon as the set comes out on the 16th, I'm going to buy the Mastery Pass, and that'll get me a bunch of stuff just off the bat, including the puppy, which is great. Oh no, I think I get the owl instead, which is sad. But then I'll just do a bunch of stuff so I can get more gems, and then we'll do a Theros draft and let you guys know how that went. But we are going to end the podcast now. It's been a while. This has been a long podcast. We had some interruptions. It's all good. It is all good in the hood. But for those of you who sticking around, thank you so much. Special thanks to Cat Audic for Kawaii Overload, the song that we use in our intro and our outro for the show. I don't know if you guys let's just hope it worked. Woo, fun cast, yay. You guys can hit us up on social media at Wholfie. You can check us out on Twitter at Wholfie. I just said that. On Twitch at twitch.tv/Wholfie, where we sometimes live stream the podcast. to disastrous effects, and sometimes we play Magic or Hearthstone, really all the card games. You can hit us up at hearthwalkers@gmail.com if you want to email us about how good we're doing, or if you guys want us to cover a specific topic or something like that we haven't gotten to yet. Yeah, just let us know on there. And we'll do a bonus episode on it. We did a bonus episode on the Pokemon TCG like for Christmas, so that was fun. I like doing that. I love making podcasts. So thank you guys so much. Special thanks to Blue Kitty for putting up with all my shiz. And I think that's it. See you guys next week. Actually, we'll see you guys in a bit because we have another episode to do for all the Hearthstone changes. We're not gonna record it right now, but we're gonna do it later. It'll come out around the same time as this one, so do not fear. Thank you guys for listening. See you soon.